Alex, a seemingly ordinary man, has spent his entire life considering his family the highest value. His parents had lived together for more than 40 years and had always been a model of loyalty and love. So when he married Lisa, in the full bloom of life and feeling unshakable confidence in their future together, he was ready to bring the whole world to her feet. This confidence, backed by years of quiet, though not cloudless, marriage, suddenly faltered one single day. But at the very moment when it all began, Alex suspected nothing. That Thursday morning, he woke up with a special mood. It was the middle of the work week, but there was something special in the air. Maybe it was due to the completion of a major project at work, or because Lisa had mentioned something the night before that she wanted to fulfill on the weekend. Alex did not pay close attention to her words at that time. He was too busy thinking about the upcoming reporting meeting with his boss. However, there was a worry in his soul. What if I'm missing something important? Maybe I really should give her some attention and warmth? A few hours later, when his working day was just beginning, the thought that he could make some surprise for Lisa took over him completely. Alex was well aware of how much the element of surprise meant. He always remembered with delight their first months together, when they could hold hands and wander around the city without a purpose, spontaneously entering small coffee shops, buying cinnamon buns, and talking for hours about everything and nothing. Neither he nor she had extra money back then, but they had feelings, and that was more than enough. He decided to leave work early to give Lisa a romantic evening. The main thing now was to get permission from the boss. The office of the boss was a spacious room with panoramic windows overlooking the business center of the city. Alex went inside with a confident step, but inside he still felt a slight trepidation. His supervisor, a strict man of 40 years old, usually did not encourage unauthorized shortening of the working day. Nevertheless, Alex took the chance. He explained that he had serious family circumstances and that it was extremely necessary for him to leave early in order to have time for everything. He did not lie, although he embellished the situation. His boss looked at him over his glasses and, appreciating his thorough approach to his duties in recent months, sighed heavily and waved his hand in agreement. "All right, you can leave a couple hours early, but I want a full contract summary on my desk tomorrow morning. Do not forget that," he said in a tone that brooked no objection. "Of course, I'll prepare everything." Alex nodded discreetly, trying not to show his joy too obviously. As he left the office, he felt a wave of excitement rising inside him. It seemed to him that the world was filling with colors again. He imagined that Lisa, seeing him with a bouquet and wine, would smile in a way that she had not smiled for a long time. How she would throw herself on his neck and say, "How much I love you." And just at that moment, everything will fall into place. All the problems of life will be on the back burner. That is why he got married. He wanted to experience again that warm feeling of unity when they look into each other's eyes and understand everything without words. Alex hurriedly returned to his workplace, quickly dealt with the most urgent emails, and, having given his colleagues a couple of jokes, left the office at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He had a full 4 hours head start on the time Lisa usually got home. As he approached his car, however, he suddenly remembered that Lisa seemed to have the day off today. "Well, that's fine," he thought. "Then I'll have time to get everything done before she suspects a surprise." The road to the flower store wound through the narrow streets of the old neighborhood. He loved these neighborhoods for their atmosphere. High-rises did not displace small stores, and people seemed to live more leisurely and simple lives. Alex walked into a small salon, where it was always semi-dark, and the air was filled with the smell of plants and notes of floral perfume. The saleswoman, who knew his face, smiled. "Again decided to please your spouse? Today we have delightful branches of white roses, just delivered this morning." Alex nodded and asked to make a bouquet of 9 flowers, adding sprigs of eucalyptus and some greenery for volume. While the florist was working on the composition, he looked at the orchids in the corner and thought about how long it had been since he and Lisa had gone on vacation together. Maybe we should go to Europe next vacation, or at least to the sea. Thoughts flashed through his mind. The desire to improve their relationship now seemed irresistible. He felt like a young man in love, ready to roll mountains for the sake of his beloved. With the bouquet and the rustling film, which wonderfully shaded the whiteness of the roses, Alex went to the car. The saleswoman barely had time to run out behind him with a smile and the words, "Have a nice evening." The next stop was a wine boutique, where Alex spent a long time choosing wine, listening to the sommelier's advice. In the end, he decided on a light Chardonnay with citrus notes, which Lisa had once praised. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. All that was left was to buy something for the table, perhaps soft cheeses and grapes, a couple of kind of appetizers. It did not take Alex more than half an hour to pack it all up, and by 5 p.m., he was sitting in the car with a sense of pleasant contentment. When he finally pulled up in front of the house, the sun was already setting, coloring the sky with pinkish and golden tones. The house they lived in was a cozy 2-story building with a small lawn where Alex often mowed the grass on weekends. Everything seemed to breathe calmness and harmony. His heart beat faster when he opened the gate and entered the lot. The familiar creaking of the wicket sounded in his ear like the music of hope. "Lisa, I'm home," he wanted to shout, but held back, determined to make the surprise truly unexpected. Let the very sight of her, those roses and wine, tell the whole story. But what he would see next did not fit into any romantic concept. Any minute now, all the joyous anticipation would turn into a bitter realization of inevitability. When Alex quietly turned the key in the door, he radiated childlike delight. In one hand, he had a bouquet of white roses elegantly tied with a silver ribbon, and in the other a bag of wine and cheeses. My head filled with joyful pictures. How Lisa would hear his footsteps and run out into the hallway in her cozy home clothes, and he would hold out the flowers to her and kiss her neck. However, the reality gave a crack already in the first seconds. As soon as he crossed the threshold, there was silence in the hallway. Not a sound. There was no TV, no music, no voice of his wife, who usually at such times was either cleaning up or talking on the phone with her friends. Alex paused for a moment, listening to the subtle sounds in the house. Nothing, only his own heartbeat, fast and impatient, trying not to arouse suspicions. Although there was nothing to suspect him of, Alex entered the living room. Everything looked absolutely normal. But where was Lisa? He took the shopping to the kitchen, trying not to make noise with the bags, and suddenly he heard a strange sound that came from the second floor. It sounded like someone moving there with quick steps and then stopping. Alex involuntarily tensed up. His heart pounded even harder, though he could not understand why the excitement was overwhelming him. An inner voice whispered, "Perhaps Lisa is up and down, trying on outfits?" But where did the need for such an active change of clothes at the end of the day come from? Gathering his wits, Alex started up the stairs. His left shoulder trembled slightly from the tension, because his hands were no longer able to hold the bouquet and the bottle carelessly. He decided to leave the flowers on one of the steps to make it easier to step, and put the wine on the nightstand by the stairs. As he reached the top landing, his gaze fell on the open door to their bedroom. A slight smell of perfume was coming from the room, the same perfume that Lisa used to get only on special occasions. For a second, Alex felt a twinge of jealousy, but quickly brushed it away. Nonsense. Maybe she decided to surprise me, wearing that dress I love so much. As he entered the bedroom, however, his eyes locked on the suitcase standing by the bed and Lisa, who was at the mirror. She was wearing a tight-fitting cocktail dress in a deep navy blue color with a neckline that accentuated her figure, and was applying lipstick. Her long dark hair fell in smooth waves over her shoulders, and her expression spoke of an inner focus on her own appearance. There was not a bit of domesticity, not a hint that she was expecting a husband. On the contrary, she looked like she was going on a date. For a split second, Alex froze in the doorway, not wanting to believe his own eyes. His wife, whom he had known for so many years as a modest and gentle woman, now looked like she was getting ready to go to a high-end restaurant or, even more disturbingly, to someone's romantic evening. Lisa noticed his reflection in the mirror and turned around, startled by surprise. "Alex, why are you so early?" Her voice sounded nervous and tense, as if she had not expected to be caught looking like that. I had a couple hours to spare. I thought I'd surprise you. Alex's voice trailed off at the end of the sentence as he could not take his eyes off the suitcase. And you? Where are you going? She averted her gaze, absent-mindedly fixing her hair. Her eyes slid over his confused face, lingered on him for a few seconds. Then she looked away. An old friend of mine is here. I have not seen him in 15 years, she began softly, as if trying to keep her words as neutral as possible. He is going through a difficult time. He just got divorced. I have to support him because we've always been on good terms. He has asked me to come to the country house for the weekend to talk. Alex clenched his jaw so hard that his cheekbones rang. The words sounded like blows to his heart. Old friend, difficult period, country house. A dubious coincidence, was not it? He did not even know some buddy of hers had shown up in town. And why now? On a weekend when he himself had planned to spend time with his wife, would this mysterious man show up? For the weekend, he repeated, looking at the suitcase. So, you going to leave right now? Lisa nodded slightly and bent down to buckle her high-heeled sandals. She seemed to be trying not to meet his gaze. Yes, tonight exactly. He has picking me up in his car, and we're going straight out of town. Really? Alex finally entered the room, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. The bouquet was left downstairs, the wine abandoned. All his dreams of a romantic evening shattered like glass under the heavy hammer of reality. And you did not even see fit to tell me beforehand? He heard how rough his own voice sounded, filled with hurt and resentment. But Lisa was clearly keeping her distance. She turned to face him, folding her arms across her chest. I was going to tell you. I just did not have time. Besides, I'm not under strict scrutiny, am I? It is not like we in prison, and I do not have to account for who I'm traveling with and where I'm going every time. Right? The words about non-existent imprisonment sounded like a rebuke. Alex felt a wave of rage rising in him. But stronger than that rage was the pain. It was the pain that clenched his throat, preventing him from breathing freely. What do you mean? You do not have to report. After all, they were husband and wife, not neighbors in a communal apartment. Had things between them become so alien that such things were non-negotiable? I'm sorry, Alex said, trying to stop the tremor in his voice. Maybe I'm overreacting. But you did not even tell me that you had plans for the whole weekend. I wanted to spend that time with you. He stopped talking, realizing that he was not going to get any participation in return. As if according to a script, where each actor already knew his role, Lisa went to the suitcase and started to check if she had everything. Alex looked at her carefully, trying to catch even a hint of doubt. Does not she care that her husband is standing in front of her in confusion, with empty hands, which were clutching the bouquet not so long ago? Does she not care for his feelings? Liz, he took a step toward her, holding out his hand. Are you sure this is just a friendly trip? She averted her eyes from him. And it was that gesture that hit him harder than any words could. In every little detail, in every movement of her lashes, there was something incomprehensible and unpleasant. It was as if she was afraid he'd read the truth in the depths of her pupils. Yes, Alex, she answered in an almost even voice, though the note of irritation in it was palpable. If you must know, it is perfectly innocent. Nothing criminal. It is just a man going through a rough patch, and I want to support him. That is all. Alex could not shake the sticky feeling that he was not being told the whole truth. Frustration and anger alternated, but in the end he just sighed heavily and let it out. All right, go. His own submission surprised him. It was as if he had said those words in a voice that was not his own. A storm of emotions was raging in his soul, but he did not make a scandal, did not forbid her to leave, did not pull the suitcase out of her hands. He understood. If a man really wants to cheat, no obstacles will not help. If it is not treason, then he will only insult her distrust. But his intuition screamed that something was wrong here, that such a friend suddenly from the past was too suspicious, that Lisa was going to him with such enthusiasm, dressed up as if for a date. I'll be back Sunday night. Do not worry, Lisa answered, realizing that since she was leaving without a scandal, it was possible to play the role of an innocent wife, who was just going out for a couple of days. But Alex already felt that his plans for a cozy evening, for a heart-to-heart talk, for the return of warmth in their relationship were scattered, turning to ashes. When Lisa passed by him, lightly touching his shoulder, he sensed from her a sharp scent of perfume that she usually saved for special occasions. And that touch burned his soul not with sensual warmth, but with the coldness of possible loss. "I'll see you later," she said without even making eye contact with him, and went down the stairs. Alex stood in the empty room, not knowing what to say or do. He heard the front door slam, and after a while he heard the sound of the engine starting. Apparently, the friend was already there to pick her up. Alex's heart wanted to jump out of his chest, but his hand, paralyzed by consciousness, did not even let him go to the window and see what kind of person it was. When Lisa left, Alex continued to sit on the edge of the bed, looking at the empty room and digesting the shock of the last few minutes. The very thought of his wife going to spend the weekend with a friend she had not seen in 15 years was like a blow to the head. He tried to imagine their meeting. Would they hug? Would they reminisce? Would they joke about their high school or college years? It might have looked innocent enough if it had not been for Lisa's outfit, her obvious nervousness, and, most importantly, the fact that she decided to hide it until the last minute. With each new turn of thought, Alex's conviction grew stronger. Something was wrong here. He realized he could not sit quietly and wait for her to return, sipping the wine he bought for their evening together. The pain of jealousy and resentment was like a splinter inside, preventing him from breathing fully. Sitting down on the windowsill and pulling out his phone, Alex started searching the internet for contacts of private detectives in their city. The idea of hiring someone seemed crazy, but he did not see any other way. Following her himself was out of the question. He had no idea where exactly this country house was located, and Lisa would probably be more careful if she noticed that Alex had followed her. A detective works professionally, discreetly, knows how to take photos or video if necessary. Alex frantically scrolled through websites, reading reviews, trying to find someone he could trust. Finally, he came across an ad for a detective named Igor who specialized in family investigations. The ad said, "I have extensive experience in surveillance, evidence gathering. Confidentiality and accuracy guaranteed." He called Igor, explained in general terms the essence of the problem. The detective spoke in a calm, confident voice. "Do not worry. These cases are my profile. I will need only basic information. The license plate number, if you know it, or at least a description. A photo of your wife, where she is clearly visible, the expected address of the country house or its neighborhood. I'll take care of the rest. You'll get a report on the results in any form you like, a photo, a video, or a written report." Alex felt nausea coming up to his throat. Gathering his strength, he told the detective everything he knew. Turning off the phone, Alex felt his hands shaking. Perhaps, in another situation, he would have laughed at such a plot. A quiet office worker hires a detective to follow his own wife, who supposedly goes to help a friend. But the laughter did not come, only a deafening longing and unbearable anxiety. He walked through the rooms, as if looking for something to fix his eyes on to regain his composure. But whenever he saw a detail, her book on the bedside table, a comb on the dressing table, a box of her favorite perfume, in his memory recalled scenes where Lisa, smiling, admitted that she loved him. Where's that smile now? Alex thought bitterly. The night passed in agonizing, sleepless waiting. Alex tried to read, turned on the TV to distract himself, but every time he came back to thoughts about Lisa. The picture of her in a tight dress, going somewhere with an unknown man, cut his eyes. He was angry with her, then suddenly afraid that she was now in the arms of another man. Even when he passed out for a second, sinking into a half-sleep, he was haunted by visions. Lisa in the same clothes, clinging to some stranger. These nightmares made him wake up in a cold sweat. In the morning, Alex's cell phone beeped. A message from Igor. "I have a lead on the car. Ready to go to the scene. Need your confirmation." Alex replied briefly, "Go ahead. I'll pay what you need. The main thing is to find them." It seemed to him that now all the money in the world would not be spared, just to get rid of this terrible uncertainty. While the detective was investigating, Alex felt deprived of energy, as if all his vital resources were spent on fighting his inner demons. He walked around the house, idly looking in the refrigerator, where the very cheeses and appetizers he had planned to serve at the romantic evening last night were lying. He poured himself a glass of wine, but he could not take a sip. It was disgusting. His thoughts swirled around one thing. What if it turns out she really cheated on me? What then? Alex could not find an answer to that question. The thought that it was true, that he was betrayed, that there was no future for them, made him afraid. On the other hand, he tried to hold on to a tiny hope. What if it was really just a friendly help, and he just had too raging jealousy? Maybe she'd come home on Sunday, give him a hug, and say, "Well, what were you so nervous about? It was innocent after all." But the memories of her flashy makeup, the hurt in her voice, and her feeble explanations kept him going. At some point on Sunday afternoon, when Alex had already despaired of waiting, he received a new notification. "Igor, got information. We need a meeting. Come to the address." Alex left without delay, forgetting to close the door. He wanted to hear the truth, no matter how bitter it was. On the way, he almost missed his turn several times, his thoughts returning to his nightmares. What if the detective was about to show him pictures that proved the worst? Or would he not after all? Meeting Igor in one of the quiet cafes on the outskirts of the city, Alex felt a shiver as the detective began to lay out the photos in front of him and talk about where and how he had tracked the white crossover. One of the photos showed Lisa getting out of the car with a suitcase. The other was of her companion, a tall man with rough features who seemed to Alex to be looking at her in an overly possessive way. But the creepiest of all is the unvarnished footage of the two of them entering the house, with Igor commenting that at night there are no lights in the windows except for the bedroom. All indications are that they spend their time exclusively alone, the detective concluded dryly. "I rented a room in a neighboring cottage, and I had the opportunity to keep surveillance. Photos on the phone records, if you want to listen, it's all ready. But it's clear from the first evidence that this is not just a friendly conversation. I saw them hugging on the terrace several times, him kissing her on the lips. And admittedly, the bed scenes leave no doubt either." At that moment, Alex felt something inside him kicking up. He could not breathe, could not speak. Nausea immediately came to his throat. The world he had lived in before had shattered into a million pieces. He took a few pictures, glanced at them, and could not continue, his eyes blurred. With trembling hands, he tried to return the pictures to the table, but dropped them on the floor. The detective quickly gathered them up, and Alex sat there, clutching his temples, thinking only about one thing. The worst thing has happened. My wife cheated on me, and there is no doubt about it. Instead of words, he nodded frantically, signaling that he accepted the information. Igor, accustomed to such emotional reactions, touched Alex's shoulder and said with understanding, "I'm sorry for what happened. But if you want, I'll continue the surveillance until her return to collect more evidence. You might want to use it in your divorce or property division." Alex nodded again, a lump in his throat and his soul screaming with pain. Now he knew Sunday would bring new confirmations. But did he need it? On the other hand, Alex realized that the more reliable the evidence was, the less opportunity Lisa would have to twist and lie. The thought that she could also deny the obvious made everything inside of him tighten into a knot. He left the cafe without remembering how he paid for his coffee or how he said goodbye to the detective. All that stood before his eyes were those few snapshots. Lisa smiling at the stranger, his arm around her waist. And the whole life they had lived together melted away in the abyss of those few shots. On the way home, Alex never once turned on the music in the car. He just drove like a robot, mechanically turning the steering wheel. Tears were choking him, but he held on, not letting them escape. It would seem that there was nothing left to sob. He had been betrayed so blatantly and brazenly that there was no room for illusions or doubts. That same evening, Igor sent Alex a few more pictures. In one picture, Liza was standing at the window of a country house, dressed in homemade clothes, but frankly short and clearly not meant for cold nights. Behind her back, she could see the silhouette of the same man, as if he was putting his arm around her shoulders. In another picture, taken by lantern light, they were sitting on the porch, huddled together, glasses in their hands, laughing about something. From the expression on Lisa's face, you could tell that she was happy, liberated, and no shadows of doubt troubled her. It was a different face, not the one Alex was used to seeing at home in the last months. It seemed that in these photos Lisa was in her element, far from any family routine. Igor, in the correspondence dryly mentioned, saw them several times in an intimate embrace through the window. I hope you know what I mean. There is a videotape, but it is of poor quality. For Alex, this came as another blow. He did not need high-quality footage to guess what his wife was doing there. He closed his eyes and gritted his teeth, realizing that even if he accidentally saw the footage, it would leave an indelible scar on his soul. For a moment he wanted to curse, to smash something to pieces, but he managed to restrain himself, only to slam his fist into the wall, leaving a dark bruise on his hand. Igor continued to send short messages describing what had happened. We went to the garden, laughed, he took her in his arms, went to the nearest store, bought wine and groceries, went to the local park, walked around holding hands. All these phrases crossed out any hope that the trip could have been purely friendly. Alex read and felt a sharp resentment rising in him, not only toward his wife, who had betrayed his trust, but also toward himself for his helplessness, for the fact that he could not or would not tear everything up in one sharp movement. Yet he continued to let the detective work, gathering more and more evidence. By late afternoon, Igor had written that he was going to set up a small hidden camera near one of the windows to get more indisputable evidence. Alex read it and suddenly felt a twinge of revulsion. Has it really come to this? I'm allowing my own wife to be spied on in intimate moments? But he realized he had no other way to find out the whole truth and possibly use it in a court case. In his moment of rage at Lisa, it seemed to him that nothing could be too humiliating anymore. All night Alex, without washing his eyes, looked through the photos that the detective had already managed to forward to him. They showed his wife and this stranger. They were barbecuing together, feeding each other pieces of meat, laughing. In one picture, the man clutched Lisa's waist, pulling her close to him, and in another she kissed his neck, not hiding her passion. This frankness hurt Alex most acutely, as if hot needles were piercing his consciousness. He felt utterly deceived, devastated, and wildly angry. All that remained was to wait for Lisa to return. Every minute dragged on forever. His phone lay on the table with the photos open as a reminder of what he was now seeing firsthand, their marriage destroyed. At some point, an idea began to form in Alex's mind of exactly how to meet Lisa when she returned. His first thought was to simply change the locks so she could not enter the house. But that did not seem like enough for him. The second idea was to wait for her inside, throw the photos and notes in her face, demand an explanation. But then Alex decided it was too much of an honor to see her tears, to listen to her excuses. She had already betrayed him, so why listen to empty words now? Eventually a plan matured in him. It would be something like the last scene of the play. He wanted to take her things out onto the lawn, have a real sale so the whole neighborhood would realize what she had done. Of course, the idea was cruel, but Alex was not going to be magnanimous anymore. In the remaining hours before Lisa arrived, he pulled her clothes out of closets and dressers. Lingerie, evening gowns, casual blouses, everything flew into a pile on the lawn where he had constructed makeshift hangers. His eyes stung at the sight of these things he had once lovingly bought for her, but a cold determination enveloped his soul. He did not even feel sorry for the expensive outfits. They now seemed like symbols of lies. Then he found a sheet of plywood and wrote on it in large letters the phrase, "Clothing and clothing sale. Cheap, almost for sale." He pinned this sheet to a peg and hammered the peg into the ground by the gate. All his actions were imbued with a stubborn mixture of pride and rabid resentment. He wanted Lisa to feel the shock of seeing such a performance. Neighbors looked at him from behind the curtains. Some passed by and asked him what was going on. Alex answered one of them. My wife cheated on me. She does not live here anymore. I'm selling her stuff. The directness of his words made people's eyes round, but no one asked for details. Perhaps it was fear of a possible scene or basic delicacy that kept them from asking. And then, toward evening, the silence of the street was broken by the rumble of a car pulling up. Alex stood on the porch, holding the detective's materials, photos and videos on a flash drive, though he had not planned to use them during the meeting itself. He just felt prepared for any eventuality. As he stepped down from the porch, he noticed that Lisa had stopped outside the gate. Maybe her companion had guessed not to drive right up to the house to avoid meeting her cheating husband. The car door opened and Lisa stepped out, lighting up the street with her cocky smile. At first, she saw only Alex standing at the gate, but after a second her gaze slid past him and stopped at the pile of things scattered across the lawn. Her face instantly lost all shades of happiness. The lipstick color she was so proud of now looked ridiculous as her eyes widened in horror. What is going on here? She exhaled confusedly. Alex took a step forward, trying not to scream, though everything was boiling inside him. This is your stuff. I decided that since you chose another life, your closet is no longer needed here. And as you can see, you not allowed in either. He pointed to a sign that read, Clothing and Apparel Sale. Lisa stared at those words, and tears suddenly came to her eyes. She tried to make a move toward him. Alex, honey, let's talk this over, please. This is some kind of misunderstanding. But Alex realized she was about to lie, or at best, downplay the magnitude of her lie. He could not stand these hypocritical tricks any longer. Raising his hand to stop her from coming closer, he said firmly, No, enough. I know everything. I have proof. Your pictures, your videos. Your affection at the country house. Do not waste my time. Do not you dare call me sweetheart. You chose someone else, so go to him. At that moment, Lisa must have realized that the story had gone too far. She looked at the car, from which the silhouette of her old friend peeked out. But he, realizing the heated situation, did not even get out of the cabin. Lisa wanted to call him by name, but he pretended not to hear. Perhaps his plans for further communication with her had already changed. After all, faced with reality, he was not ready to bear responsibility for a broken marriage, for this scandal, which could become the property of the entire neighborhood. Please let me in the house, Lisa begged, sobbing. Let me at least explain myself. Alex smirked bitterly, looking around at the dresses and boxes spread out on the lawn. He remembered how recently he had trembled with love and tenderness for her. But now there was only a bitter residue. There is no need for explanations, he said with cold determination. You made up your mind when you chose this pathetic deception. I cannot and will not forgive it. We are no longer man and wife. I'll take care of the formalities as soon as possible. You'll be receiving the papers from my lawyer. His voice sounded even, without hysteria, but in his eyes burned icy fury. Lisa realized that it was useless to try to persuade him now, but perhaps she was hoping for a show of pity. She looked around at the scattered things and, gathering the remnants of pride, squeezed out, All right, I'll go. But you'll regret it. It's not that simple, Alex. I have rights too. In her heart, however, she realized that at that very moment she had lost her home, her husband, and the sense of security he'd given her. Maybe she hoped her old friend would lend a shoulder, but when she turned to the car, all she saw was the door closing and the rumble of the engine moving away. He drove away, leaving her in this humiliating situation. Tears sprang from her eyes then, and all arrogance and bravado vanished. She squatted down in front of her abandoned belongings, as if trying to keep something of her former life out of sight. Alex looked down at her, feeling devastated inside. He thought he would feel triumph at seeing her humiliation, but instead he felt a strange emptiness, as if nothing mattered anymore. Watching her in tears, touching with her hands the dresses, in which, perhaps, she had once shown near him, Alex suddenly realized that this scene was the final point of their relationship. And no more words were needed. He turned and went to the door, closing the wicket behind him. Lisa remained on the lawn, lonely and rejected, with a pile of clothes and bulky boxes. In that instant, Alex felt nothing but liberation. His life would change dramatically, and he was ready for it. When the gate slammed shut, Alex took a few steps across the yard and froze, staring toward the garden. The years spent with Lisa swiftly flashed through his memory. Their first dates, inspiring walks, common travels, modest wedding, joyful evenings at dinner. He suddenly realized clearly that those memories would never completely disappear, for they were part of his life. He walked into the kitchen, closed the door behind him, and leaned against the wall. Only his own breathing could be heard in the silence. Looking up, he saw on the table the bottle of wine he had once bought to surprise Lisa with. The surprise that changed everything, he thought with bitter irony. But now that bottle sat like a meaningless trophy, a symbol of failed love. Taking it slowly, Alex walked out onto the back porch where there was some fresh air. He opened the wine and took a sip. The bitter flavor seemed to him a reflection of the changes that were now taking place in his life. But at the same time, he felt a slight release. He would no longer have to pretend that all was well, no longer have to question his wife's loyalty. Yes, a new chapter awaited him, bitter, difficult, but his own, without illusions or deceit. Taking another sip, he sat down on the swing they had once set up together for summer vacations. The pleasant coolness of the twilight embraced him, as if letting him realize that life does not stop. It goes forward, and if one thing ends, another begins. The next morning, Alex woke up with the dawn. It was quiet, too quiet. Lisa's voice no longer sounded in the house, nor were her usual morning footsteps in the kitchen. He was the only one left in that space now. He went downstairs, put the coffee on, sat down at the table, and took out his phone. In the contact list, he found the lawyer whose number he had saved the day before. He took a deep breath and dialed. "Good morning. I need a quick divorce." The lawyer was brief. "Got it. What are the terms?" "She can keep everything she wants except the house. It's mine. I'll pay for the services, but I need it done quickly." "Okay. Give me a day, and I'll get the paperwork ready." Alex dropped the call and looked out the window. There were no more of her things on the lawn. Apparently, Lisa had come back during the night and taken what she could, or maybe someone else had taken her stuff. He did not care. Part of him expected her to try to say something else, to come back, to explain herself. But none of that happened. 2 days later, the lawyer sent him the papers. He did not read the whole document, just skimmed to the right place and signed. And a week later, Lisa wrote the first message. "Alex, let us meet. I need to talk to you." He looked at this text for a long time, but did not reply. The next day came the second message. "I made a mistake. Forgive me. Give me a chance to make it right." Alex sat down at his desk, wondering if he should answer her at all. But after a minute, he typed a reply. "It's too late," and sent it. She never wrote again. A month later, he heard from acquaintances that her friend had left her immediately after the scandal. Lisa tried to rebuild her life, but she failed without a husband, without stability, with the stigma of a woman who destroyed her own marriage for the sake of a moment's pleasure. Alex, on the other hand, had no regrets. On the contrary, he felt free for the first time in a long time. He changed the locks in the house, removed everything that reminded him of Lisa, and began to live again. One day, walking past the flower store, he remembered the day he had stood there with a bouquet of white roses. At that moment, he still believed in love, believed in their family. Now he just grinned and moved on. Lisa's story was over. His was just beginning. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.